Top 11 films tailor-made for The Thing lovers. While horror fans revisited their favorite movies this Halloween, one classic masterpiece that was definitely on most people's list is John Carpenter's The Thing. This sci-fi horror film, starring Kurt Russell, was accompanied by a talented ensemble cast of scientists who travel to Antarctica and are hunted by an alien who takes the form of its victims. This video will show you a handful of fantastic films that reminds viewers of the all-time classic and are just as exciting.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
The Blob, 1988. Meg Penny is a cheerleader on a date with a football player, Paul Taylor. Before they reach their destination, an old vagrant runs out before their car screaming in terror. The old man is closely followed by Brian Flagg, a local teen rebel. Paul blames Brian for chasing the old man, but after the trio takes him to the doctor, it becomes clear that the vagrant had more on his mind than some kid. In reality, he was screaming because of an acid-like substance on his hand. This substance spreads over his entire body and eventually consumes him. Soon, the growing red blob sprouts tentacles to attack its victims. It becomes a menace to the small town of Arbville, Colorado. The military soon arrives in hazmat suits led by Dr. Christopher Meadows, who claims they're here to stop the Blob. The Blob, directed by Chuck Russell, is intense, imaginative, grotesquely funny, and startling all at the same time. It's one of those films where even when a character's demise is known, it still seems over the top and harsher than viewers might expect. The late 70s and 80s were a busy time for sci-fi horror films. Although The Blob was largely overlooked in theaters due to its 50s predecessor, by the end of the 80s, most popular opinion entailed that it was one of the few remakes that were better than the original. The movie owes a great deal to the amorphous effects of Philip Kaufman's invasion of the body snatchers, and the eerie, ominous vibe of the creature to John Carpenter's The Thing. Tony Gardner's effects for the film were impressive in their own right. The movie also contains an abundance of 80s cynicism, which gives it a different slant to the original's Cold War persona.
All right. Give me the damn jar.
X-Files episode, Ice, 1993. In this episode of X-Files, a team of scientists heads to Alaska, where the Arctic Ice Core Project scientists have seemingly lost their minds and murdered each other. The team had just beaten the record for finding the deepest core sample when they began behaving rather oddly. When the agents arrive at the deserted post, they discover that an ancient microorganism from one of the deep core samples is responsible for this tragedy. The helicopter pilot is the one to be infected and has to be restrained. When another member of the group gets infected, things get really tense in the middle of nowhere. Ice is the 8th episode of the first season of X-Files, one of the early classics written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, directed by David Nutter. Viewers will immediately identify its lack of originality with Carpenter's The Thing written all over it, from the team working on the Arctic Ice Core Project to the mysterious organism being discovered, responsible for everyone's death. With that said, it stands out as one of the most intriguing episodes. The writers and director do a fantastic job of sustaining the tension and paranoia throughout. It has a remarkable opening sequence that establishes the visceral and unsettling tone right from the start. Scully's distressed reaction, accompanied by Mulder being a suspect of carrying the infection, almost doubles that excitement. Overall, it's a wonderfully executed homage that never feels too dependent on the original story. Mulder and Scully's regular hilarious exchange of dialogues are accompanied by sophisticated photography to sway the audience. The Thing, 2011. Dr. Sander Holverson invites paleontologist Kate Lloyd to join his team, who has made an extraordinary discovery. Deep below the Arctic ice, they have found an alien spacecraft that has been there for thousands of years. Not far from where the spaceship landed, they find the remains of the occupant. It's cut out of the ice and taken back to their camp. As the ice melts, the frozen creature thaws and comes to life. Not only does it begin to attack them, but it also manages to take their form. The Thing is one of the most durable sci-fi stories of all time. It was initially written as Who Goes There by John W. Campbell, and of course serves as the remake and prequel to John Carpenter's 1982 film of the same name. Its ideas for aliens are transmuted into two versions. In the 1950s, aliens were considered allegories of the communist menace, like Carpenter's film. This modern-day remake finds useful the notion that the story takes place entirely within a closed system. It is either a research station in Antarctica or a spaceship traveling the void. Since the Thing secretly inhabits its ghosts, the plot comes down to a deadly puzzle. Several viewers who have seen both the original and remake still seemed confused about what the creature looked like. The movie's point wasn't its appearance, but rather the suspense that it unleashed on the audience. Carpenter's contribution in the film was to take advantage of 3 decades of special effects to construct the awfully gooey creatures. This movie's best scene is a very creative spin on the original film's best scene, the extraordinarily tense blood test sequence in which paranoia tips over into mass bloodshed. Harbinger down. 2015. A group of grad students reserves passage on the crabbing boat named Harbinger to study the effects of global warming on a pod of belugas in the Bering Sea. When the ship's crew dredges up a recently thawed old piece of Soviet space wreckage, things take a deadly turn. It turns out that the Russians were experimenting with tardigrades, tiny resilient animals that can withstand the extreme conditions of space radiation. Although the creatures survived, they mutated into deadly organisms that the crew is now exposed to. After being locked in ice for 30 years, the creatures aren't about to give up the warmth of human companionship. The movie, directed by Alec Gillis, is made for aficionados of the 80s sci-fi horror era. It stands between self-consciously cheesy to better than average in terms of production value, performance levels, and overall suspense. Harbinger Down is a low-budget, high-concept trifle that attracted sufficient home screen traffic during its release. Over a short period, it has acquired a decent cult following and becomes a creature feature favorite for many, especially hardcore fans of John Carpenter's The Thing. Yes, that's what this film reminds you of. Its most interesting aspect is that it receives its initial funding from a Kickstarter campaign by promising fans of an old-school opus with minimum CGI, an abundance of animatronics, and practical effects. The movie successfully delivered on their word and contained a more or less quaintly retro vibe. Gillis keeps the film moving at a satisfyingly brisk pace. After about half an hour or so of exposition and sketchy character development, he gradually builds up the body count that will make for the perfect adrenaline rush that you seek. The Void, 2016. When Sheriff Deputy Carter discovers a man soaked in blood limping down a deserted road, he rushes him to a local hospital. As cloaked, cult-like figures surround the building, the staff and patients inside the hospital begin turning ravenously insane. Carter tries to protect the survivors. He leads them into the depths of the hospital where they discover a gateway that leads to immense evil. The Void is a supernatural horror film directed by Steven Kostanski and Jeremy Gillespie, and it is a gory, special effects-driven film inspired by surrealism. It contains clear influences and cosmic fear of Clive Barker, George Romero, and, most importantly, John Carpenter from his classic sci-fi horror film, The Thing. Half the fun of being a horror fan is trying to seek new stories amidst heaps of genre and the shameless homages paid to all the veterans of filmmaking. After a promising start, The Void drifts into a muddled sci-fi mystical horror hybrid that grows more thematically ambitious. Although certain critics pointed out certain shortcomings of this film, in an era where remakes and sequels dominate big screen horror, this resourceful, polished indie film merits a great deal of admiration. Things escalate so quickly in the film that viewers are glued to their seats more than half the movie in anticipation and excitement of how the plot will unfold further. The Mist, 2007. David, Steph, and Billy Drayton live in a small town in Maine. One night, a ferocious storm hits the area and damages their house. It's accompanied by a strange mist the following morning. David, Billy, and the neighbor Brent Norton go into town and find themselves trapped in a grocery store with several other people. There they discover that the mist contains something frightening that intends to kill humans. The Mist, directed by Frank Darabont, is based on Stephen King's novel of the same name. It is dark, tense, and inhibited by just enough gore to keep viewers' flinch reflex intact. The film's editing is so uncompromising that one assumes that Darabont had the final cut without allowing the studio to interfere, since he does not use the same end as in King's novel. He has fashioned a tense motion picture filled with paranoia, religious fanaticism, and the price of hopelessness. In fact, many critics claim that Frank Darabont, the creator of The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, has succeeded here where John Carpenter could not, with The Fog. This is ironic considering how similar the film's vibe is to The Thing. The Mist begins in the ordinary world before quickly taking a journey into the surreal. It portrays a group of unlikely heroes that blow viewers' minds and make watching it a memorable experience.
You're loading or unloading.
Elizabeth.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. Dr. Matthew Bennell notices that several of his friends and patients are complaining that their relatives somehow appear different in certain ways. When questioned later, they also seem different, and they deny their earlier statements by making excuses. As the invaders increase in number, they become more open, and Bennell, who by now has witnessed an attempt replacement, realizes that he and his friends must escape, or they will be doomed to suffer the same fate as everyone else in town. Unfortunately, he does not know who he can trust anymore, and who has already been snatched. The sci-fi horror film based on Jack Finney's quietly creepy novel is a remake of the 1956 movie of the same name, directed by Don Siegel. Philip Kaufman has made an excellently updated version to contribute to the late 70s by exhibiting a more modern setting. With each remake, the film's setting uses a more vulnerable, mainstream American location for the creepy invasions to take place in. Kaufman makes sure that the story is not narrated in a straight line. Instead, he builds up the viewer's unease by using disjointed scenes that show that the world is subtly wrong. This isn't the sort of scene that one encounters in a contemporary American horror film. Throughout the version of this film, Kaufman creates one of the most subtle and extraordinary, fluid-textured scenes. His vision is helped by the acting performance of Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams. Overall, this is an entertaining thriller that is a must-watch for those who loved the excitement on offer for The Thing.
Right. We win. End of story.
The Faculty, 1998. In Harrington High School in Ohio, teachers suddenly start showing a change in attitude. Casey and Delilah have a harrowing experience when they witness the strangulation of the school nurse by two of the teachers. They are even more shocked when they find the nurse to be alive moments later. In this bizarre turn of events, the students start suspecting an alien infection behind the cause. Now, they must get to the Queen Alien and eliminate them before it's too late. The Faculty, directed by Robert Rodriguez, is a lump of self-aware genre trash. It's an unlikely blend of Philip Kaufman's Invasion of the Body Snatchers and John Carpenter's The Thing. This sci-fi horror teen flick involves a meeting of minds between Rodriguez and famous screenwriter Kevin Williamson. Each of them values style over substance in their films, referencing movies according to their personal mantra. The most important aspect of this movie is that it is aware and in full control of its paper-thin story, characters, and points of view. It might not be an award winner, but it definitely sends viewers running for cover under their blankets. Williamson playfully incorporates subversive narrative elements when he is not paying homage to The Breakfast Club or The Thing, whichever one seems more appropriate at the specific points in the film. "10 Cloverfield Lane," 2016. After getting in a car accident, Michelle awakens to find herself in a mysterious bunker with two men named Howard and Emmett. Howard offers her a pair of crutches to help her remain mobile with the leg injury she sustained from the car crash. He also tells her to get good on those before leaving the bunker. She discovers that there has been an alien attack, and the outside world is affected by a chemical attack. However, Howard and Emmett's intentions soon seem questionable. Michelle then begins contemplating whether it is safer in the bunker or outside. This movie, directed by Dan Trachtenberg, plays on forced perspective, keeping viewers in the dark regarding its whereabouts. It's a tight, tense thriller carried by excellent performances from John Goodman and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. It has echoes of Alfred Hitchcock and H.G. Wells embedded in a cat-and-mouse chase after the world has ended, without traditionally acknowledging it. It serves as a sequel to the 2008 film Cloverfield. It also subtly nods toward John Carpenter's 1982 sci-fi thriller, The Thing. The film feels slightly old-fashioned in its style for one that's made in the 2010s. It recalls genre pictures from the 50s and 60s, although Trachtenberg and his team do not explore its themes to their full potential. It is quite visually engaging and makes for rock-solid entertainment. It keeps viewers guessing and jumping for 100 minutes before it evokes the sense of unease that keeps them at the edge of their seats.
Ingen? Ingen?
Cold Prey, 2006. Janik, Morten Tobias, Eric, Mikael, and Ingunn are on a snowboarding excursion in Norway. They're forced to take shelter in an abandoned hotel when Morten Tobias breaks his leg, and their car is too far away for them to reach within nightfall. They quickly discover that the hotel was closed in the 70s due to the manager's son's disappearance. Unknown to them, someone is still living in the hotel, and getting home or even surviving the stay won't be as easy as they thought. Although the first act of Cold Prey might look like a car commercial playing the Ship of Fools formula, it's all too excruciatingly familiar. This movie, directed by Roar Uthaug, takes viewers back to the whole brief glory days when the slashing in slasher films was merely part of a compelling mix that includes atmosphere, suspense, and character development. At first, the approach might seem a little dry, but this film is a good reminder that it doesn't take much to make a good quality slasher film. Several filmmakers have exploited the perceived ease and phoned in many bad, gory splatter movies over the years. But Cold Prey works in reverse by attempting to make the best possible film out of its lean premise. Such simplicity captures the slasher's essence that Uthaug in this film manages to evoke John Carpenter's The Thing-like vibe amidst the ice-cold, snowy setting and location. This movie makes a great argument that this genre can still thrive without resorting to gimmicks or even a whole lot of bloodshed. Roar Uthaug meticulously crafts a solid horror movie that almost feels like an accidental slasher despite following a similar blueprint of what's been around for over 3 decades.
Shit.
Go, 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 go!
The Colony, 2013. By 2045, humans have built weather machines to control the warming climate due to climate change and global warming. These machines break down one day when it begins to snow, and it doesn't stop. Whatever humans remain live in underground bunkers to escape the extreme cold. Their challenges are controlling disease and producing sufficient food. 2 soldiers, Briggs and Mason, are the leaders of one such bunker, Colony 7. Briggs, Sam, and Graydon travel to nearby Colony 5 after receiving a distress signal, and it turns out to be a crisis that they didn't quite imagine. The Colony is a jaw-dropping innovation, and this exciting story is directed by Jeff Renfro. It is a mashup of standard-issue dystopian sci-fi and basic zombie movie tropes with a hint of John Carpenter's The Thing. The film claims a few solid performances by veteran actors like Charlotte Sullivan and Lawrence Fishburne, and is well executed on a technical level. Its innumerable wide-angle shots of terrifying people and their ghoulish pursuers dashing down dark underground corridors are nicely photographed. The film contains a frostbitten script whose skeletal plot cuts and pastes bits from several other survival yarns. This movie is 2/3 of a pretty decent sci-fi suspense film that is professionally polished, but it lacks novelty and personality on some level.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.